In this D&D vlog, we're going to explore and build a checklist, how to run a dungeon adventure. Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, is there anything more classic than a dungeon crawl? Maybe a dungeon crawl with dragons, but the idea of the unknown, treasure, monsters, loot, possibly recovering some sort of artifact, and the phase of exploration, literally going into the unknown. That is what we want to capture, exploring and building our D&D checklist for a dungeon adventure. Now, the adventure itself, there's going to be a lead-in. It might be a map. It might be a quest. It might be to recover an artifact or investigate some mysterious circumstances. From there, we're going to lead into the dungeon. This might be the ruins of a castle. It could be a crypt. It could just literally be an entrance into the ground or perhaps a secret passage revealed in a mountain. And then, of course, once we're in there, the players mapping, creating, fighting, discovering, loot, experience. So within that, what we're trying to convey, and what I notice as a DM, of course, the active imagination of the players. And when we're putting aside for a moment Dwarven Forge or playing with 3D terrain, we're going theater of the mind. With a dungeon, the way the players imagine it, and often the way it's mapped out on hex paper or graph paper or just plain paper, it can have this feeling or this tendency to be kind of flat, to be kind of 2D. So within that exploration, we kind of want to break that out and create this as a living environment, literally a living ecosystem. So as the players explore, what I try to do, and this could be with a pre-published dungeon module, a little bit of flair, a little bit of extra added in, but I try to communicate the fact that there's stuff going on in this dungeon. There's monsters actively roaming. There are environmental effects. You walk into a room, part of the floor is collapsed in the northeast corner. It's filled with kind of brackish, oozing water. This isn't the most stable environment. As you walk, I might add in effects that maybe part of the ceiling, some dirt is falling down, or perhaps in the distance, you hear, was that a cry for help? Or the echo of a scream? In the distance, you hear some grinding metal on metal. This idea of putting out little bits of flavor, little bits of here and there, not required on a perception check or a search check, to do two things. Let the players know that, hey, other things are going on in this dungeon. The idea, if we look at the map behind the DM screen, I know where all the monsters are. I know what's going on. But they're not just like hanging out there waiting to activate. Like, they're active. They're doing things. So I want to try and possibly convey that off in the dungeon, there's this, over here, there's that. This idea of other things going on, creating, in a good way, a positive way, tension, suspense. You're, 100 feet or so underground? Unless you're a dwarf, that's going to make you pretty nervous. Elves are going to be freaking out, right? Humans might hold it together. Half-orcs are like, whatever. But you are deep underground, and there are many hazards beyond just monsters. Through this narrative, through this flavor, I want to convey that. Now, these various bits and pieces, don't tell the players, they don't really impact the game. The scream in the distance, the cry in the distance, that's nothing. The metal on metal, crunching and grinding, maybe it's something, but it's probably nothing. The description of the floor in the corner with kind of sinking in this water and this ooze, could be an ooze pool, but it's really nothing. As you read the adventure text, if you're using a pre-populated module, just think of little pieces here and there where you can embellish it and add this sense of urgency. I find if I can create the dungeon as a hazardous place that you really don't want to hang out that long, that combined with the monsters, with the encounters, with the experience, with the treasure, really makes it pop and really brings it to life. So now, splitting that to my fellow dungeon masters and my fellow D&D players, what are some of those descriptions? What are some of those elements in a dungeon adventure that really pull you in and take it from just 2D on a piece of graph paper to now 3D and something really, really adventuring and going on in the theater of the mind.